Hi, I'm Amy. I'm 14 years old and I'm from Walpole, Massachusetts, and I love the weather. Whether it's raining and windy, whoa, or snowing and blowing, I've always really enjoyed storms, lightning, hurricanes, and blizzards. When I was little, my parents used to encourage me to look at the clouds and see if I could find any animal shapes. Then one of my science teachers was giving us a lecture on the weather, and I realized that someday I'd like to become a meteorologist. I volunteer at a local weather observatory where I get to work with real meteorologists.
So it's getting a little more windy as the day goes on.
A meteorologist is someone who predicts the weather. We use different instruments to collect our weather data. These instruments all measure the wind. These are barometers. They're used to measure the air pressure. You can use a barometer to predict the weather. Later, I'll show you how to make your own barometer so that you can predict the weather at home. Air pressure is the amount of force air pushes on things. When there's higher pressure, it will probably be sunny. When there's lower pressure, it'll probably be raining. The weather patterns are always changing. Oftentimes, you'll never see the same weather pattern occur twice. Sometimes, I just like to sit back and watch it change.
This great old observatory really was the result of a passion of one young man who loved the weather and wanted to get into studying what was happening in the clouds and the surrounding atmosphere. So with the help of his parents, he was able to design and build this structure for just a little over $3,000. That was 114 years ago. He went on to become one of the world's most important meteorologists, and over 1,000 scientific studies have been conducted in this grand old building. We're very proud of it, and we hope that in the future there'll be another 1,000 papers written here.
What do you think they're measuring?
Right now we're trying to develop collaborations with the metropolitan Boston area, specifically with area businesses. We're currently working with AER, which is Atmospheric Research out of Cambridge, to expand our programs into national programs. Our WINS program, Women in Natural Science, with the help of NASA, will be funded for a national program. The history of this observatory was really in jeopardy if there was going to be a future rather to that history. A few years ago the building was completely falling apart, and thanks to the MDC we raised over $1 million to save this building. My goal as a teacher for 34 years was to have other young people come up here and gain the same passion that I have. And what better place, as you saw today, to go up on the roof in the middle of a 50-mile-an-hour wind gust and really feel nature around you. And that was our goal in saving this building so that students from all around the Boston area could get to love the weather like we do.
Later today, the clouds roll in, and Fran, don't forget that umbrella. Some showers will get into the mix later today, and at the same time, those winds will be picking up. Bye-bye! You might even hear a few claps of thunder, so the best thing to do is stay tuned to meteorology. The sky is still the limit.
Hello and welcome to our 8th and final program. I'm Fran Shampoo. I'm stuck here in the studio. With us is Mish Michaels at the Blue Hills Observatory in Milton, Mass. The lucky dog. Mish?
Hey Fran, good afternoon to you. Can you believe it's already our final show? Time passes so quickly when you're having a great time, and I've got to tell you, we're having a great time here today. As you mentioned, we are live at the Blue Hill Weather Observatory, which is located in Milton atop a small little mountain range just about 10 miles southwest of Boston. We are here to collect data about the current conditions of the atmosphere. What is it like right now? And we're going to feed that data back to you in the studio so you can take our information and pull together a big picture about what the weather is like not only in New England, but across the country. Now, this building behind me might not look like much, but there's all sorts of cool weather gadgets inside. If we can take you to the top, you can see some of the anemometers that are taking the wind speed and direction right now. They're also recording inside temperature, cloud cover, barometric pressure, and the dew point. And during our broadcast today, we're going to communicate all this information back to you. So Fran, I'm going to be the data collector here, and you are going to be the meteorologist today. That is your challenge, so we're switching roles just a little bit. Before we get to that exercise, though, I wanted to introduce you to the Blue Hill Weather Observatory. It doesn't look all that impressive, but I'll tell you what, it is an important part of the history of meteorology. Let's take a look back in time. The Blue Hill Weather Observatory is located in Milton, Massachusetts, just some 10 miles south of Boston at latitude 42.13 north and longitude 71.7 west. The observatory is situated on the top of what is called the Great Blue Hill, which is part of a modest mountain range at roughly 635 feet above sea level. This height makes the hill the highest elevation so close to the ocean along the entire East Coast. From this vantage point, you can see the city skyline of Boston to the north, the Atlantic Ocean to the northeast, and on a good day, Mount Wachusett some 30 miles away. The Weather Observatory was founded back in 1885 by Abbott Lawrence Roach as a private scientific station for the study of weather and the atmosphere. Before the turn of the century, the very first weather kites were flown here to collect weather data about the lower atmosphere. These kites were used regularly up until the early 1900s, when an instrument called a radiosonde or weather balloon was invented at the observatory. This instrument, which is still used today, provides the National Weather Service with daily information about the atmosphere from the ground to several thousand feet up into the sky, this taken at locations all over the country. Over 1,200 scientific articles on weather have been authored by those affiliated with the observatory. Important research on the upper atmosphere, clouds, and rainfall has also been conducted here. But the most important function of the Blue Hill Weather Observatory over the years has been the daily weather observations made here, hour after hour, day after day, year after year. Back on February 1st of 1885, the first weather records were taken here. Since then, for the last 114 years, an unbroken record of weather data has been carefully collected and documented.
Okay, here at the Blue Hill Observatory, 100 years ago today, May 13th, 1899, the high temperature was 71 degrees and the low temperature 51 degrees, and they measured 0.05 of an inch of rain and some late afternoon and evening rain showers.
Meet Mr. Robert Skilling, a weather observer who has been watching the weather here on the top of the Great Blue Hill for the past 36 years.
Well, I've been through 2 hurricanes and probably about a half a dozen blizzards. So it's been quite a variety of weather, from winds as high as 108 miles an hour to up to measuring over 30 inches of snow in 24 hours.
Although Mr. Skilling's job has been made easier over the years with the advances in technology, he still has a huge responsibility making sure the instruments are functioning properly and keeping a clear and concise hourly weather record. Mr. Skilling, tell me about some of the observations that the instruments here at the Blue Hill take.
Well, the Blue Hill Observatory keeps records of temperature, precipitation, sunshine, and snowfall, and of course wind. We're using some of the same instruments we used over 100 years ago here at the observatory. It makes us a unique weather station. This gives us a homogeneous record of the climate here at Blue Hill, and we can tell from the record whether we're getting more precipitation or higher temperatures now than we were 100 years ago.
As you can see, very little has changed here over the last century. There's been no buildup of any urban materials, and only some of the trees behind me have grown enough to slow down the wind observations over time. As Mr. Skilling mentioned, the long weather record here at the Blue Hill Observatory is the most continuous and homogeneous in all of North America.